Welcome to TACOS Tuesday. I'm Hamish Conway, and with me today is Sebastian Hargraves. Welcome, Seb.
Thanks for having me back.
Excellent.
I was out in the wilderness for a while, but I'm back in.
Yeah, you were. I just made sure that you were getting things organised for Prime Day in USA and Australia, or Prime Week, as it is in Australia. And so by the time this comes out, it'll be Prime will have finished. What is it today? It's Fridays we do this, and so tomorrow US finishes, Monday Australia finishes. So we'll probably do a review on that more. Well, whether we do it straight after or we do it in terms of preparation for heading for the next big deal events. And it's been a pretty full on period. I know for you Seb, dealing with all sorts of things and challenges there as deals that were promised by Amazon didn't happen, and just 8 support tickets later. Finally getting deals up. Pretty frustrating just how that happens. You build your strategy around it, but then it's no deal. So having to make changes there. How's it been for you? As you kind of reflect on it so far.
Yeah, I think, it's been a good, part of it's helped us understand, some of these nuances that happen, which has been great. So I think it's helping us make sure we're keeping Amazon accountable going forward. So that's some really good stuff. And maybe we can have Annika on another episode where she could share some of that information. But otherwise, the results have been really strong, and they've been as we kind of expected, which is the first day. Buyer psychology is the first people that get in. They're the ones that are looking to purchase right now, and then it does drop off through that middle period, and we're expecting the last days to be big as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's very good. But look, hey, the topic today is, this is the first podcast that Seb and I have done in the second half of the year. And so I was keen to just go, let's review the first half of the year. And then we narrowed it down, just given we haven't got too long here, to go, right, let's look at, because we work with a lot of brands and we've got a lot of data, and when we aggregate that data and anonymize it there, so we've got some interesting things to look at. And so we're getting quite specific here in terms of what we are going to look at. We're going to look at sponsored products in Australia only. So this excludes US data, Canada, UK, Germany, any other countries. And it also excludes sponsored brands. So we're not including sponsored brands, sponsored brand video, sponsored TV, or sponsored display or DSP. Okay, so we're taking that out of the equation because we're just going to narrow it down into sponsored products. And what we're going to cover specifically is around the different placements, whether it's top of search, rest of search, or product page. And we've got some stats we're going to show you. I was umming and ahhing about this. It took me probably 10 minutes to make up my mind. Do we share this data or not? But we thought, hey, look, we're here to give you the specifics, right? And so, we're saying this is the podcast to listen to for up-to-date strategies and tactics. And so we're going to hold nothing back. And so we're going to share that with you. And that said, I know for people listening, I'm going to share our screen. If you want to look at the YouTube video to just have a look at these stats, then you can do that as well. But we'll talk to them anyway. Mostly just bring them up in front of us here, so we've got so we can talk to the specifics of those stats. So Seb, as I bring that up, anything else to add there?
Yeah, maybe if you want to just quickly jump on Amazon and just show the audience what top of search, rest of search, and product pages looks like, so that just before we dive into the data, you kind of know where these ads are showing up.
So this is Amazon Australia, a category search term in there. This is sponsored brand. We're not talking about that. It's these. This is top of search. These 4 here. Then as we scroll down for rest of search, it's not that. That sponsor brand video. Here's rest of search. Here is, and there's more down the bottom as well. Very different to America in terms of America is half the pages ads, and that's bottom of the search here. But we count this rest of search, and that's not there. This is a client of ours, by the way, Bioceutical. You can see we're testing across the board there. Obviously, middle of search. They're in the one place at the top of search, and we're going to say that this is on a Prime deal right now, and that's why that's snuck into that spot, because they sell thousands of this year. So that'll be number 1. Anyway, and then if we were to click on not clicking on the ad, we're not talking about this ad here, sponsored display or DSP. We're talking about these ones here. So this is on the product page. All these ones here that'll show up. and here, and also below their A plus, right down the bottom, if people get there. Okay, so that's what we're looking at, just those sponsored products there. Okay, so I'm sharing the sponsored products information here. So this is looking at the first 6 months of the year, sponsored products only, Australia only, and let's dive in. So Seb, what's the first observation that I know if people are watching the YouTube video, you're probably hitting pause, but for those listening, let's just start with top of search. Just maybe even just call out some of the high level stats there that matter and around impressions and clicks and orders, conversion rate, etc.
So I think the important one here is to look at cost per click and conversion rate for top of search. So,
okay.
And I suppose we can touch on impressions. So the impressions are 8 million for top of search. The cost per click is $1.28, and the conversion rate is 28.6. Now, those numbers mean nothing unless you're comparing them to something. And so if we look at some of the other placements that we have, so we'll move down to rest of search as the next one. We'll go kind of through each one. So from a conversion rate point of view, top of search is 28%, rest of search is 17%. So when Hamish was showing you that top line, that converts much, much higher than when you move down further down the page. And that makes sense, right? People have much more buyer intent. Kind of like when you're Googling stuff, you're not moving much past the first results on the page. So that's why conversion rate is low. The other thing, though, to note here is that cost per click is $1.28 at top of search and 84 cents at rest of search. So yes, there's less conversion rate, but the cost to get that traffic is much cheaper as well.
Yeah.
So that's the other piece there. And then the last piece there, or one of the other pieces, is impressions. So there's 8 million impressions at top of search, and there's actually 27 million impressions at rest of search. So a lot more eyeballs seeing that, but they're much more picky, those eyeballs, in regards to what they're deciding to purchase and buy. And this does vary by category. So you have some categories, for example, if you're selling toilet paper, for people that would be browsing a lot, like that category is not a high browsing category. Toilet paper is toilet paper. There's no features and benefits and things like that you can look at. But if you're selling a very expensive product or something that's like technology based or anything like that, there might be a lot more browsing that's happening because people are trying to find something that they're trying to solve. Or it could be a specific design. So let's say that you're in a category with lots of different designs. People will be looking a lot more or a lot deeper through the results than categories that are not like that. And so that's one other kind of factor here, is that these conversion rates will differ, and the impressions to clicks and cost per click will vary by your category as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So we, obviously the bulk of, half of that ad spend is focused on top of the search, because even though that's the high cost per click, but the conversion rate far outweighs that. And therefore it has the best ACOS. Actually not the best ACOS in this case here, but a high ROAS there. The ROAS being 7.6. A bunch of our clients there in Australia. So that is interesting. Then what about, let's just touch on product page, because there's some interesting stats here as well.
Yeah, so I think the one big thing you can see is impressions are crazy, 115 million impressions. And that's because there's, as Hamish showed before, an impression isn't a unique search. So if someone clicks on a competitor page and you're serving an ad, you get an impression, but so does every other ad that is on that product page. So one click on a competitor product could trigger hundreds of impressions, depending on how many products are on that or on that banner that Hamish was showing before. So that's the thing to note there, that lots and lots of impressions that happen there. But there's also lots of clicks that happen, right? And clicks are a much better gauge for traffic, because that's a lot more real, in the sense that it's actually someone deciding to move from the product page that they're on onto a different product page that they're on. But the other thing that you'll note is the conversion rate's much lower. So because there's so many options, the conversion rate on product pages is 13.9%, which is quite a bit lower. So it's less than half of conversion rate at top of search, and then it's down a fair bit on what rest of search is. So that means that the cost per click does need to be cheaper in order to make it make it work, which it is in this case. So we've got it at 56 cents.
56 cents.
Compared to 84 cents for rest of search and $1.28 for top of search.
Yeah. So I pulled out my calculator. That's what I was looking down and doing. So the clicks to impressions to clicks, that's a 4% click-through rate at top of the search. So that's 4%, pretty good. The product page is 0.3. So it's not 4%, it's 0.3%. So it's a much lower click-through rate, as you'd expect, happening there. And the conversion, so the conversion rate overall is 13.9, but actually the ROAS is still 8.8. 8.1. So that's still pretty high. So do you think then, as people are going, where should I allocate my my ad spend with sponsored products? Obviously, ignoring sponsored brand and display, etc. But for sponsored products, do you think people are underutilizing any of these options here, or how do you kind of balance out where to invest?
Yeah. So between top of search, rest of search, and product page, hasn't happened by accident. This has happened because of the way we optimize and go about it. So the way that in a previous episode, we talked about setting up what your target ACOS needs to be and how that's going to affect what your bids need to be. And so that really should be driving all of your optimizations. That should be driving your decisions, right? So there'll be instances where you're like, okay, this is what I can afford to pay for my advertising. So my target ACOS is this. And we've done an episode on working that out, what your target ACOS should be, it's what your contribution margin is minus whatever your target profit goal is. So while you're optimizing, there'll be sometimes where some brands can afford to pay for top of search and capitalize on that high converting and that higher cost per click traffic. But there'll be instances where your conversion rate isn't strong enough to hold you in that position based on your objectives, right? And that's the key part here, that every time you're doing your optimizations, they should be driving you towards your goals. So this layout of how this spend is distributed and traffic and everything, this is laid out this way because this supports what our objectives are for all of our brands. Now, it would be different, obviously each brand would be very different. Some brands with very strong conversion rates will have a lot more spend in that top of search.
Yeah, I mean, 28.6% conversion, like that's really good compared to, many other. I'm just going to go a little tangent here. When you look at all the media options that you've got in terms of Meta and Google, not many people are getting 28.6% conversion from a click through. It's that is very good, and depending on your product, and if you've got a really good lifetime value, then this is gold. People should be queuing up outside the door, and this is something that still, I know, frustrates us both when we're having the conversation about Amazon ads, is how people are not getting it yet in terms of there's an arbitrage opportunity here because it is so cheap. And it's only going to get more expensive. And there's an opportunity now to really pile in and actually dominate your category, because you can still do that in Australia. Because when we merged in the other numbers, like with the US, like we do a lot in the US as well. Well, I'm not going to say how much, but there's a lot. And the numbers changed quite a bit because it's way harder in America. When I went to this, I'm like, this is really interesting, just even aside from product placement. But Amazon ads in Australia it's now is the best time to be in there. And even for brands that are doing it, to actually invest more, because we see it all the time. People are underinvested. They're holding too tightly to annual budgets. And look, I get how it is, but there is, for those that have that ability to flex their budgets and really, really drive it through, this is an amazing opportunity. So I just went off on that tangent. But anyway, I thought it was relevant, just given, when you look at 28.6, you get 347,000 clicks on the top of the search, and you get 100,000 orders at $1.28. Like, that is really good. 7.6% ROAS. And along with that, you're getting increased organic ranking, which is going to give you more free sales. And to give you some context in terms of our, across the board with our total advertising cost over sales, TACOS, it's in single digits across our clients worldwide. This is about driving that free sale as well. So people just sometimes isolate and look at the paid sales, but they forget they're getting all the organic. So that's where 7.6% here is different to 7.6% with Meta or Google, because you're actually getting a whole lot more sales on top. Anyway, I'll stop my rant there. Back to you, Seb.
Yeah, so I suppose because some of the questions that might come up now are how should I allocate my spend and how should I optimize it? And some of that's like what I already touched on, which is the first step is to setting up those objectives and getting that aligned. That will then drive your decision making around where you should put your spend into which placements. So there's that. I did quickly bring up that US. So to kind of give you some context on the US comparison, where our CPC for top search is nearly $1.90, getting close to $2 compared
close
to
$2 in the US. Yeah,
compared to $1.28, $1.29 for rest of search, and interestingly, it's $1.57 for product pages. So it's higher for product pages in the US, which is interesting. So that's kind of the stats there. That shows you the difference, and like that doesn't seem like a lot, but like $1.57 in product pages to 56, it's literally $1 more, which is a big increase.
Yeah. And again, that just highlights the opportunity here in Australia. Amazon Australia is well behind America, right? But it will trend. It's only going to trend in one direction. But at the moment, it's the US is 50% higher on top of the search, 50% higher on rest of search, and actually triple on product page there. So, so that's interesting as well. Excellent. Okay, so I think that your key takeaways here are Seb's point: know your objectives. And if you want to have a conversation about what should my objectives be, because that can, you've got a number of layers to that, and in terms of your overall, you might have different brands, different products within that, and different products, new products that you're launching, etc. But it's basically, you do need to know your numbers. And the thing is that we do see a lot of brands flying blind. They're blind to the actual numbers that are that they should be paying attention to, and therefore they often then make poor decisions. So what would be a good idea is to have a chat to Seb, and we can, if you're advertising, we can do an audit for you. We'll do that for free because you're a listener of this podcast, and then you can open your eyes. And it's once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then you can start to get smart about, well, these are the specific objectives, almost literally by SKU. And then you can be setting the right bids and not overpaying. And I think if you look at these cost per clicks, then then that'll make sense. And this is done in a way that is scaling. Look, some people might set up auto campaigns and leave it, and it could look good. Like we saw that the other day, had a 30 ROAS. That's okay up to, a point, but it's not actually, you can't scale that. That's not going to scale. You've got to get the right structure to then scale. So have a chat to Seb. So go to gosellglobal.com. And then under services, find management for Amazon ads, and then you can book a call with Seb. I think, was there anything else, Seb, before we wrap that up?
No, I think that's good. It's an important piece. There's complexity to Amazon ads, and placements is another kind of complex piece, but it's an important one because if you go ahead and increase your bids on everything, you're increasing your bids across all of those placements. So unless you go and make adjustments on those placements, if I increase my bid from $1 to $2, I just increased all of the placements there. So you'd need to increase your bids, but then also adjust your placement data so that you're not increasing it on everything. You're only increasing it on the things that are working and not the things that are not working.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Well, Seb, we'll leave it at that. By the time people listen to this, Seb would have had a good rest over the weekend, maybe. I don't know.
Yes.
It could be some eyes on over the weekend. Be interesting to see the Australia final push, and tomorrow Australia time will be the end of USA Prime Day 2025. So thanks again for tuning in, folks, and we appreciate it. And like and subscribe and all of those good things. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you, or we really won't see you, but you know what I mean, on the podcast next week. All right, it's been a long week. Anyway, okay, thanks everyone.